Hi,
Hi, how are you?
good. I'm Kintu.
Hi, Kintu. Nice meeting.
Hi, Mani.
Did I get the name right, or can you?
Yeah,
Kintu, yeah,
right, Kintu.
Kintu Parantu.
Reminds me of the Mahabharata times. And so we'll just keep it casual. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions about the whole experience, and feel free to you don't have to be formal or anything. So whatever comes to your mind, okay?
I'm in my hoodie.
The first question. So Vaibhav, thanks for joining. Can you introduce yourself? What do you do? What were you doing in the US? And Kintu, uh, if you can give an intro, please, for our viewers.
Sure. So let me start. So I initially did my bachelor's in India from Pune, computer science, and then after working for a couple of years, I went for my master's in kind of financial engineering operations research. That was at Columbia in New York. And after 1.5 years of my master's, I basically started working on some research projects within a university lab.
Okay.
And with that, I met a PhD student who was basically pursuing his PhD in operations research.
Okay.
And then he dropped out of his PhD and he started working on a startup,
Okay.
which was about some travel planning. So it sounded really exciting to me.
Okay.
I started working on weekends on that. And then once the startup was actually founded, I joined immediately.
Okay.
Then we grew the startup to about 13 people
Wow.
in 2 years.
Okay.
So that was in LA, and then we moved to San Francisco.
Okay.
So it was in LA and then SF.
Okay.
Then we got acquired by Apple. That was like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We basically pivoted after some point from a travel planning startup, which was cool, to something very useful, which was geospatial data analysis.
Okay. Sounds cool.
So, and the past 4 years, I've been trying to basically catch up with Google Maps by making Apple Maps better.
Okay. You're the man.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I've been working on. And then I was trying to also understand like what's next. Like it's been quite a long time in corporate life. Like what should I do next?
Okay.
And I also saw this opportunity that Apple Maps is expanding in India. So basically I took that gate and basically I saw this as, because both of us wanted to move back. So we saw this as a great opportunity
Okay.
to come back. So I've been here in India for like 2 months. So
Okay.
I'm still like just traveling and having fun so
Fresh off
far.
the boat. Okay, we'll come to the returning part first, but thanks for that intro. How long were you in the US? 4 years, or and the study time before that, or?
So total, including the study time, I was in the US for about 8.5 years.
Okay, okay. And if let's put it this way, what made you come back to India, or what would have made you come back to India if there was not this opportunity of coming or switching jobs, or the internal transition you talked about? Was there anything that was concerning, or do you have this in your mind even before joining or going to America, or what was the thinking behind coming back to India?
Yeah, so initially when I went for my master's, there was definitely a plan of, I think that's there in a lot of people that I spoke to, that, oh, in 2 years I'm going to come back. And that 2 years is like, like tomorrow, like
Right.
it keeps getting extended every 2 years, that, oh, it's in the next 2 years I'm going to come back.
Right.
So you get comfortable with life in the US. There are a lot of comforts that you straight off see, like access to, like I was in New York, like everything that I want to do is like very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are no hurdles.
Right.
Like if you want to do something, like there are like many options.
Yeah.
Whether you're an outdoor person, whether you want to party,
Yeah.
whether you want to travel, whether you want to
Right.
You know, like work hard, like everything is very easy to do in the US.
Gotcha. Would you agree
It's
with that?
very easy to discover it's very easy to discover your own personality.
True.
In some
I
way.
agree. And Kintu, is this the same as yours as well, the story?
Not exactly. So I studied, so my story started like I studied engineering in Bombay, and then I did my master's in the UK actually.
Okay.
And after that, I was working in Mumbai, and I only moved to the US when I got married to him. So after I got married to him, I decided to move to the US. And I think for me, it was different because initially I didn't have a dependent like the work visa, the H4 EAD.
Okay.
So I was still figuring it out, but we knew it was in the process. And meanwhile, I also wanted to like transition my career and get into UX design.
Okay.
So I did that while I was waiting for my visa. And um, once everything was sorted with the visa, I found a job and I was working as a UX designer for 2 years there.
Okay.
So I think in total, I lived in the US for 4 years.
Okay.
And I think my part of the story was different because work-wise, US is a lot better for me in terms of opportunities, but I knew long term I wanted to live in India. I didn't see myself growing old in the US.
Okay.
And we also didn't have any family there. So I always knew that I'm moving there, but I want to come back in like 3-4 years.
Got it.
So yeah, my mind was always prepared for that. Even though life there was very comfortable, even work wise, I can never find the same opportunities here. But I knew this was also very important. So
got it.
Never say never.
Understood. Nice. So, what was the biggest hurdle, if I could ask, like between your being there and being here for 2 months? I know it's been a lot more easier for you because it was more like an internal transition. Has there been any bottlenecks or issues, maybe before you came here and after you came here? You know, there's always a reality versus expectation thing for Returnees. So anything of that sort that came to your mind?
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of hurdle, initially it was really hard to decide. It was, when is the right time? We did not know that. So it was just a matter of, okay, thinking about pros and cons and making a decision. And then I think once we decided, it was still really hard to, just think about moving after living a comfortable life there. That part was really hard. I think in terms of like other things, once we started talking to our friends about it, once we told them we've decided to move back, I think the reaction made us feel really better about our decision, because we realized that everyone wants to move, but no one is really doing it. So
Okay.
that made us feel really good about ourselves, that okay, we are making a decision, even though if it's right or wrong, we don't know, but at least we are doing something about it. So I
Okay.
think that was yeah, I don't think there was any other hurdle in terms, like I think once we joined the Return to India community, other things were pretty easy in terms of like deciding about shipping or like other things. Also, like we knew which city we are going to move because of his job, so it was pretty easy after that.
Got it.
Yeah, I think I thought for me also, like the biggest hurdle was actually the thought of moving back.
Right.
So yeah, especially like I had visited Bangalore and then I saw the traffic, so I was a little concerned.
Okay.
I had never visited Hyderabad ever before I moved, so that was kind of taking a long blind shot.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the thought is the most important thing. Like everything else figures itself out. Like obviously, like everyone knows the pros and cons. Like there are a lot of problems in India, like
Right.
air pollution, traffic.
Sorry to cut you there. So you guys visited India before the actual move, just to get like a guess. Is that right?
No, not really. Like we had visited Bangalore like a couple of years ago.
Oh.
I mean, because we had it in mind that we want to move back. So one of my cousins actually stays in Bangalore.
Okay.
So we had visited him, and then that's when we realized, oh, like this is gonna be hard. Like
This-
we were living in San Francisco for like 5-6 years.
okay.
So yeah,
I
like proper.
I think we were supposed to move to Hyderabad, and we had never visited Hyderabad, both of us. We'd only heard about it that it's a good city,
Yeah.
but in terms of like actually moving, we were like, okay, let's just do it. What's gonna happen if we, visit, and then is our decision going to change? Maybe not. So we just like decided to do it.
Okay. Have you visited more parts of India after you visited, as in after you returned?
Yeah, we did. We've been traveling quite a bit. So
Okay.
Pune, Mumbai, Kerala for a holiday, and then just seeing family around.
What do you prefer, Bangalore or Hyderabad?
Bangalore, definitely not, because after our one visit, the traffic is insane, and even though there are a lot more work opportunities,
Yeah.
initially, like, because we have never lived in Bangalore, so it's we are not inclined to move there anyway.
Yeah, I would say it's too early to say. Like I've heard like
You can't judge
shows
with
about
just traffic, right?
yeah, I've heard that like people have this like either telecommuting or even
Work from home and
just walking to work kind of setups,
yeah,
and those work pretty well. So
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, those two cities obviously are the most preferred ones for returnees. But we've seen that over the couple of years. Even though Bangalore is called the Silicon Valley of India, Hyderabad also has, if not the same, but competing kind of opportunities, and it's a little bit more
yeah,
spaced out, sort of. So there's more space for you to come down and settle in, and it's not as intimidating with traffic as Bangalore. Uh, at the same time, yeah, of course, there are problems like pollutions and other stuff like any other city in India. But yeah,
yeah.
thanks for that
So
perspective.
yeah, so I don't know if I should add right now, but
Yeah, go ahead.
so I'm from we are right now in Indore,
Okay.
and every time I come here, I'm like, oh, this is where I want to be. Like this is where I belong. Like it's been like the cleanest city in India for like last 4
Yeah.
years.
I saw the stats. Yeah.
I was just traveling around, and now they've started building like bike lanes,
Acha.
and
Oh,
I'm pretty surprised.
nice. That's good. How
Yeah,
about the opportunities in terms of like jobs and other stuff? I mean, this is an interest for other folks who might be considering Indore.
yeah. So it seems a pretty slowly and steadily growing city. I
Okay.
don't see a lot. I'm in the tech industry, so I'd speak on that side.
Okay.
I don't know about other industries,
Yeah, sure.
but tech is so far been very slow here.
Slow in the sense it's
Uh,
catching up, or is it actually slow?
it's very slow. Like,
Okay.
I mean, because I think we're also comparing apples and oranges. Like, there's
Right.
so much concentration of talent in Hyderabad and Bangalore that not many people come here.
Correct.
But at the same time, one of my friends actually started a startup and is doing really well in Indore. So I've been hearing like stories here and there. People who are tired of like big city life wanting to move back. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So
Got it. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I personally, I'm in Kochi, actually, in Kerala, and this is kind of like one of the, like Indore, it's comparatively cleaner. And even though there are opportunities, if you know what you're doing, if you have some clarity, then it might be a better option, as opposed to many folks who come looking for jobs. Then perhaps it's not, because it's mostly concentrated in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune as well. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that point. By the way, congrats on that winning on it was the second year in a row, the cleanest city title.
third,
Okay, great.
and on track for the fourth.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. So tell me about the process, how you moved. You mentioned this was an internal transfer. I don't know if that's technically right, but you basically moved within Apple and you chose the Hyderabad location. Is that right? Or how did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had heard of a couple of people while I was working in Cupertino of actually making this move.
Okay.
So Apple Maps specifically was the first actually development location.
Okay.
Like first office operations started with operations that actually opened up in Hyderabad.
Okay.
And then like we also grew like there was a small development team that actually grew out of Hyderabad.
Okay.
So a couple of people actually moved back.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in touch with them. Like this was in the back of my mind.
Okay.
Um, and then, as I said earlier, like when I started actually thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, whether I should basically what should I do next? Should I, like, if I want to start something in the US, like there are visa hurdles, like she has a dependent visa, like all those issues.
Right.
And we like, okay, we want to live in India. So that's when I started talking to my like senior managers about the director about like how this move actually takes place.
Okay.
So they were very like helpful. Like I spoke to a bunch of teams, so it was very smooth
Okay.
in those terms.
Okay.
We wanted to move in the winters because the weather makes it very easy, relatively easier.
Yeah.
Uh, so so that's why we had thought about it from like April, May itself,
Okay.
like of a November timeline. Also vacation time, so it's easier. Like the work is much more relaxed.
Got it. Got it.
So I started talking to people, and then I found the right team. Like I was really like there was some very independent and interesting work going on in India. It's not like the back office work. It's like we
Gotcha.
have our own
Pioneering
projects.
work. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So and then when this all figured out, then it was like very easy because Apple specifically internal transfer is very smooth.
Got it.
Like they book your tickets, like rental car in the US,
Okay.
temporary accommodation here,
Gotcha.
like all the travel.
So that's
Everything.
That's actually very interesting. So you're saying the kind of work that you do right now is probably as good as what's happening in Cupertino, right? I mean,
It's better for me. Like I'm more excited about it.
Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I think this kind of reminds me because when I moved to US, I had the same thing going on because the company would take care of my accommodation temporarily. I think many companies do that, and it was like a very smooth transition. But this is the opposite side. So you were basically, taken back to India and you're given temporary accommodation. Everything is taken care of by the company, shipping and all that stuff, right? That's
Yeah.
great, actually. I know a lot of folks who will envy you for that from the community.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges for everyone. Like, how do you make the transition possible? Should I ship my TV with shipping to go ahead with, and those kind of questions, right? So you had all of that taken care of by the company.
Yeah. So
most of it,
like shipping was not, but we actually, because we had this, like we never bought a house. Like we had very limited stuff actually to bring back anyway.
Okay.
So
made it easy.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think many of us, especially the folks who are on work visas, temporary work visas, are kind of in that mode because you never know what might happen, and you always have to like be in a plug and play mode. So should something happen, basically take you from there and plug it back here. That's great. So right now you've started working with Apple, or are you taking your own time to settle in?
Like I basically went there for a week to hunt for apartments, and that's when I was. I also got to know a little bit about the work culture, and like I met all the people.
Okay.
Like set up bank account, like all those kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
But my actual work will actually start from like January 2nd week.
Okay, great. And what do you think about the situation there with in terms of finding real estate apartments? Have you decided? Was there anything new that you discovered once you started looking? I can tell from Kintu's face that he has more to add there.
Yeah, I had more time, obviously. So I was the one going around and looking at apartments. I was really surprised at like all the gated communities and the facilities that they have. So that was a very pleasant surprise to find everything. So, because of the traffic, we know we cannot go around every day, be it for gym or for anything else. So I was really surprised by that. Really surprised by the amount of construction that's going on. Like everywhere you look, there's new communities being built up.
Yeah.
So it's very upcoming in that sense. we are prioritizing staying closer to our workplace, and we sort of have a sense of like what community we want to live in.
Okay.
So we still, I'm not really sure with the distance, and some areas seem more upcoming, but at this point there's less to do, whereas the others are like a lot more developed, a lot more like restaurants and other stuff. So
Gotcha.
still I can figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
what I
about?
would add to
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
what I would add to that is basically that Hyderabad has two things, like two parts to it. One is like this upcoming high tech and Kachi Boli. So like it's not very well developed in terms of like things you can do around. And one is Jubilee Hills side, which is like very nice. Like we went there once and it was amazing. Like it was like that's where we would like to live ideally. But
Yeah. That's where all the stars
yeah,
are, the movie stars and everyone. That's like the
yeah,
poshest part.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, what about the price ranges and stuff like that? I mean, did you find anything alarming? Like, have the prices gone up or down, or did you have any inputs on that?
I think it's pretty average. We had a higher number in our mind when we moved because people told us, it's pretty expensive. But what
Okay.
we realized are it's a big range in Hyderabad. Like you can find something for 30K to something for like 90K. So the range is big, and the apartments are pretty big and spacious. Like a 3 BHK is a norm there. So I
Got it.
think that it's really good.
Yeah, for two of us, the apartments are too big.
Okay.
But yeah, the communities are nice. Like
You have a lot of
some of them,
options, the gated community.
yeah, there are a lot of options, definitely.
Yeah. I think one thing in Hyderabad I've noticed is that there are a lot of returnees. I mean, maybe in the last
Yes.
couple of years, there's been a lot of interest for people to move back. And because of this, many of the real estate that's coming up, they have this NRI angle to it, where they promise you to give kind of the same kind of experience that you might have had in the US. So, parks, gated communities, walkways, or stuff like that. So, which is very comforting for returnees, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I think the difference that I would like, one of the contrasting differences that I would say, I mean, I don't know much about politics, but from what I hear and what I read is that like we are coming from Bay Area, so there the problem is the opposite. The problem is of supply.
Right.
Like everything is so regulated that they're not building enough housing.
Right.
That's causing prices to shoot up. Here, they're building too much in some sense.
Right. That's
So
much on the market. Yeah.
yeah, so one of the kind of annoying things, the hurdles, as you were asking, was that any apartment, even the nicer ones that we would see, like sometimes there is noise or dust from like new society coming up.
Yeah.
So that can be concerning sometimes, whether whether we want to live here, and like, will there be dust, will there be noise?
Yeah, I
And
know.
there's no regulation, there's not much regulation, it seems. So
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, because it's a good thing because there's new stuff coming up, but also it's a bad thing.
yeah,
There's always concession going on, and those
right. Yeah, and like because it's less regulated, like in the US, we would see that if they're building new buildings, they would have those curtains that go down
Yeah.
the entire building, so there's less dust.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, first world problem.
Right. Cool. Well, tell me a little bit about personal finance. Like, how did you handle your finances? If that's something that would interest you, like for example, your 401k or credit cards and that kind of stuff. Because we have a personal finance group for attorneys. Are you part of that or no?
Yeah,
okay.
We are part of that.
Yeah. So, like, what is your?
I think for personal finance specifically, I think this Back to India group helped us a lot.
Okay.
Because there are so many different questions, even without asking, sometimes just like following the groups.
Yeah.
And feeds kind of answers the questions that we would have asked in the future.
Okay.
So it really helped us basically understand a lot of. So I mean, sometimes we would take up some of the keywords from those chats and then basically Google them. Oh, what does this mean? like what is Ross, stuff like that.
Got it.
And then so yeah, I think that's a big, because like for us everything else was kind of smooth. Like yeah, personal finance was something which I was really concerned about.
Okay.
Like there are so many apps, there are different options, so
How
I
to
think
money and everything.
yeah, so I think our questions sometimes got answered before we had asked them.
Okay.
So I think that made it kind of easy. One of the hard things compared to the US and India is like the market is more unstable. So in terms of investment, you're always unsure
Yeah.
what's the right option. But that's like no one can answer that question. Like no one knows the answer to that question.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah, but otherwise, like in terms of the hurdles, like bank account transfers, like the money transfer, like that's one of the primary questions. And 401k account, like even buying versus renting, those questions keep getting discussed.
Right.
So that helps us a lot.
Right. I can hear the subjuala in the background. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Part of being back.
One of the perks, right?
All the Swiggy and Uber deliveries have existed in India for a long time.
Yeah. Cool. So what else? So what would be your advice to aspiring returnees? I know yours might have been a slightly different way of doing things because a lot of things were taken care of, but at least within that bracket, what would you say to folks who are in the US and contemplating about moving back? Is India good, bad? What would you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say like just do it if it's on your mind, because it's never going to be the right time. So it's just about making the move. One other, like from our experience, I would highly recommend that moving in December, like the winter time, makes it really comfortable, like work wise and weather wise. So I think that was a really good decision, because we had a lot of free time. We could travel, also like had enough time to settle down.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that made it really easy.
Got it. Would you recommend people to plan well in advance, or just go for it? Because
that's what I was thinking. I think my input would be that being a little more proactive helps.
Okay.
Rather than moving by force.
Okay.
Moving by choice. If like having a little more long-term perspective about where the life is heading, whether you see yourself in the future, like maybe move to Canada, who knows? Like a lot of friends told us like, why are you not moving to Canada?
Mm-hmm.
For us, priorities were settling down in India, close to home, like really makes us happy.
Okay.
But it can be different for different people.
Right.
But either way, like have a little more longer term perspective.
Okay.
I think that would be my advice.
Got it. And
I think sorry, I was just going to answer your question more specifically about planning in advance. I think for us, because it's just the two of us, it was a lot easier. We didn't need to plan that much in advance. I think people with kids might need to think a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's the difference, I would say.
Got it. Yeah, like I said, a lot in the community would actually envy you, because it was a lot more easy for you, the transition. But it's good to hear that you're able to do a lot more cooler stuff perhaps, and not do a compromise, because one of the burning questions for returnees is how do you find jobs in India, and that was taken care of for you. So that's a good thing. And India, there's a lot of new stuff happening. New cities are warming up for embracing returnees, and I wouldn't say you would get exactly the same thing, but at least there's an effort that you can see visibly, like the kind of apartments there is, or the kind of tools there is, like the new startups and apps that have come out, which 5 years back many of these weren't there. So that actually dramatically improves the quality of life. So many of these things are actually easing that big effect, a negative effect, if there was one.
Yeah.
So that's great. So we're right on time. So I'll just end with asking probably one of the biggest burning question that every day gets repeated on the forum, which is, did you bring your TV?
No, we did not.
Okay, great. Because I was going to ask, how did what happened afterwards? Did you get it fried, or what did you do? Power difference and everything? Because every day we have that question on.
Yeah, the lesser stuff, the better for sure.
Isn't it? Yeah, I wish many returnees figure that out. Anyways.
Yeah, don't worry.
Even furniture is like a lot more easier. You can custom build it. So
yeah, which did you like? Which one did you get? Like pepper fry, urban ladder? What was it?
Yeah, that's the plan. We haven't really moved yet. So, but I think we are gonna. Also, I'm hearing a lot more rental options available. So
Yes.
you just rent furniture and slowly buy. So that we might just do that.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. So we're right on time. So thanks a lot, Vaibhav and Kintu, for joining us and sharing your experiences here. I hope it's okay for folks to get back to you with questions. What would be the right way to do it? On WhatsApp, or do you have email or something?
Yeah, I think email would work for me. My email is V as in Victor, B as in boy, 7132@gmail.com.
Great. Yeah, I'll flash it on the screen as well. So if anyone has any questions, can maybe how to replace or move to Indore, maybe a question.
I would also like to get the answer to that.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for joining. And it was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much for this.
Awesome.
Besides this video, what I would like to add is if you are looking for more kind of hands, I'm a software product person. She's a UX designer. So
yeah, we'd be really happy to help. I think when you posted, I think a month or two back, I think you needed help with the new website, but we were really occupied that time. But please feel free to get in touch if you need any help with design.
I'm crying right now.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that a lot. I think, the more hands we have, the better it would be. Like I said, this is the movement I'm hoping that we can, kind of scale. It started off as just like a side project back in 2017, but seeing the kind of interest and excitement from the community, I think this can go a long way, provided, we all huddle together and, put our talents into it. So thanks a lot for that. I will definitely take that offline and come back to you with how we can do it together. But that makes me so happy. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know that. All right.
Let us go in Hyderabad at some point.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Okay, so I'm gonna end this, and then I'll post it on YouTube, and I'll share the link with you shortly. But I think it was great. I think a lot of the returnees or aspirant returnees would find it interesting. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.